I just want to make sure that you all know to meet us at the subway, 96th Street and Broadway on Saturday the 14th. There will be a table that day at Westside High, which is one of the most frequented early voting sites in the city, if not the most, and that's where we're going to be on the 15th, the 21st, and the 22nd. I know people always wonder, what are you going to do if it rains? Because guess what? It's been raining a lot. When it's raining, we do not table because everything gets soaked in addition to the people volunteering. So there's the fight against fascism at the subways, because if we elect the right people to office in New York City, we can really help fight this battle. There's the No Kings March. And now Lynn Max is going to come up and tell you about our fabulous, fabulous palm cards. And then Teresa is going to come up and tell us about the fabulous upcoming picnic. And Donna actually said to me, no, you go ahead first and do your announcements, and then I'll speak. So it's okay that Donna is sitting right there.
Hi, everyone. All of you are probably wondering, what can I do that's easy, okay, to help out in this election? I know you're all going to come and leaflet at the tables at the subways, but here's something really easy. We have these beautiful palm cards with 3 parks endorsed candidates, a beautiful, easy to hand out. People love it. In the back, it tells all about our club. I would like, at the end of the meeting, for everybody to take 3 or 4 of these, okay? Put one in your building, if that's allowed, and hand the other ones out to people you know, and say, these are people who were vetted by 3 Parks Independent Democrats, and they're the best of the bunch, okay? The other thing you can do is we have Brad Lander buttons in the back. You can take one, put it on your clothes, transfer it off to different clothes that you're wearing each day, and wear it so that you start publicizing it. The third thing is, you may have seen that there is a Dear Neighbor letter, as well as a copy of the palm card in your email. Okay, it would be very easy for you just to forward it to your friends and say, these are our recommendations. These are your recommendations because we all voted for these candidates. So please, at the end of the meeting, come and pick up some materials and spread the information around. And hope to see you at the subways and the tables. It's actually a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
Yes, thanks to Lynn and Steve for organizing a lot of the tables. And to Chuck, who is always on time. I do want to say one more thing. As you all know, since you've been coming to these meetings, we are urging you for mayor to put Lander first and Stringer second, and above all, do not rank Andrew Cuomo. I hope that some of those flyers are in the back. Lynn, do you have those pink flyers regarding Cuomo? Well, she's busy doing her job back there. In any event, we are really hoping that you don't rank Andrew Cuomo, because if 7,000 of us don't rank Andrew Cuomo, he can't be mayor. So thank you very much. Without further ado, I would like to introduce to you our featured speaker this evening. Donna Lieberman has been executive director of the New York Civil Liberties Union for over 20 years. Under her leadership, the membership has grown to over 850,000 people, and they have opened 8 offices around the state. And Donna is a fierce advocate. In my day job, I advocate for young adults on Rikers, and Donna is one of the people who always comes to the rallies to close Rikers Island. And so I just would like you all to please give Donna a very warm welcome.
Hello, everybody. You guys, you know, you brought me here right after the election, right, to sort of tell you what I thought. And I can't believe you asked me back. It was a dire prediction then, and it's direr. Is that a word? It's even, this thing is really in my face. That's okay. I'll suffer. Anyway, it's pretty. Oh, no, that's okay. It's like getting so close to me. All right, that's good. So, yeah. So we all knew then that Trump posed a huge threat to our democracy, and we were right. It's not so much fun to be so right. But I think even those of us who had read Project 25 had no idea just how bad things could be. I am in that category. Some people have described what's going on in our country now as McCarthyism 2.0. Actually, I would say it's McCarthyism on crack. I used to say steroids, but it's crack. We have seen the dismantling of so much of the federal government and just about everything good and humane about it, from USAID to vaccines to Medicaid. The bullying of the institutions that, flawed as they are and have been, the institutions we thought we could rely on, mainstream media, academia, liberal law firms. Some have stood up. Many, many, many have capitulated. We've seen the crass and really, I think, unimaginable, certainly unimagined, I believe, white supremacy of this administration and the reversion to a blatant racism we thought we were still clawing our way out of as a country. We've seen the weaponization of opposition to anti-Semitism in service of authoritarianism, the suppression of free speech, academic freedom, and making anti-Semitism, fighting anti-Semitism, a tool to establish a fascist regime. We've seen the deployment of the National Guard and Marines to carry out Trump's deportation machine, to suppress protest, and the real agenda to move us a step closer to an autocracy. Oh, good, that's not me. And that's not everything. You know, I don't like to go into the parade of the horribles, but you have to do some of it. It's a lot, and it's hard to take, but it's our job to stand up to the bullies. And I'm glad to say that my organization, the ACLU, has got the assignment. We're on it. I might say for some of you in the room, perhaps in contrast to the last McCarthy era, when it took the ACLU a minute to figure out what was so very wrong. But ours is a government of laws, not men, or even men and crazy women. Our laws are made by Congress and cannot be overridden by executive order, and no one is above the law. So I have to stop for a minute and say, these son of a bitches, you know, listen to me. I am not the law and order guy, but here I am standing for the rule of law. Of course I am. Across the country, the ACLU has already taken over 100 legal actions against the Trump regime to defend free speech, due process, equal rights, and the rule of law. We've sued on behalf of those individuals and institutions who are in the crosshairs of the attack on democracy and our democratic institutions. Oh, hi. Friends, you know. First and foremost, immigrants. Thousands and thousands, by now tens and 20s of thousands of people who, no matter how they came here, are entitled to the protections we promise everyone in this country. The ACLU, NYCLU has sued to protect people who have followed the rules as they were given. They got their green cards, they got their student visas, they got their temporary protected status, or filed for asylum, seeking their day in court, and then were picked up by ICE. We've sued on behalf of U.S. citizens, wrongly and illegally picked up by the U.S. deportation machine, who suddenly find themselves snatched from their families, pulled out of schools and research laboratories, stopped from getting life-saving medical care in the middle of treatment, abducted off the street and thrown into prisons. Yes, no matter what we call immigration enforcement, theoretically it's civil immigration enforcement, that is a crock of shit. They are being held in prisons, and this is criminal detention. And they're not just being deported, but hauled off to notorious foreign gulags at the mercy of foreign dictators. The cruelty, the inhumanity is hard to fathom, and the pain is staggering. I said I wasn't doing the parade of the horribles. You're welcome. But guys, there is hope. There are victories. We can celebrate the release of Columbia University student Mohsen Mahdawi and Rumeysa Ozturk. And as of like an hour ago, I can announce a victory-ish for Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia graduate student who was kidnapped from in front of his house, in front of his pregnant wife, who has been in jail for 3 months because the president and his gang have said that his perfectly legal, First Amendment protected speech criticizing Israel is a threat to American foreign policy. So just an hour ago, the federal court in New Jersey ruled that his detention and the attempt to deport him under that law is illegal. He issued a preliminary injunction. So but this is a judge who moves very slowly and doesn't appear to, look, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. He wrote a good opinion. But he doesn't seem to appreciate the impact of keeping somebody in jail for 4 months, 3.5 months, right? And keeping a new dad from his wife's side, keeping a new mom from having her husband by her side for the birth of their first baby. I could cry, but I'm going to try not to. He's not yet free, and we have to continue the fight for his freedom. The judge has given the government 40 hours to appeal. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We're fighting like hell to get him the hell out of prison in Louisiana. We can't, we haven't, and we won't stand by and let government trample our rights, citizen and non-citizen alike. Our right to believe what we believe, to say what we think, to peacefully and lawfully protest the policies of our government or any other government. So we'll celebrate our victories, and we'll celebrate one victory on behalf of students. We did get them to suspend the program of revoking student visas for any foreign student who has spoken out against any of Trump policies. They reversed that policy. That's a good thing, but we all know that an enormous amount of harm has been done. I want to talk for a second about Harvard. The institutions that we love, we hate, whatever, I have to say that I am proud to be one of the 12,000 alumni of Harvard who signed an amicus brief in support of the challenge to Trump's cutoff of Harvard's funds. And I went to my reunion this year for the sole purpose of promoting the group called Crimson Courage, which is the group that organized the amicus brief. And I was one of a whole lot of people who never in my lifetime thought I would give them a nickel. They don't need my money. I gave them a check, okay? And I'm proud to say that I did, and I made it clear why. And Harvard got the single largest number of donations in their history after they announced that they were standing up. And I can't tell you how, it was so apparent to me before, but it was really so obvious while I was at the Alumni Day celebration. There were thousands of alumni, some of them, older even than me, not exactly the most progressive crowd in the world, right? When Alan Garber was introduced, even before anything about what Harvard had done, standing ovation. Then when he came to the podium, standing ovation. Then when he started to talk about standing up for academic freedom, he couldn't get, standing ovation after standing ovation after standing ovation. A lot of people said to me, so what? What effect is this amicus brief going to have? You sign it. Well, it doesn't matter, does it? Yes, it does. We all know that it's quite possible that Harvard stepped into its position as a leader of the resistance by accident when they leaked that ridiculous set of demands. We have to keep them there. And when an institution like that shows up, stands up, we have to support them because we can't let them go back. What they do will inspire and empower other like-minded or like institutions to stand up. Everybody who stands up inspires somebody else to have the courage to stand up as well. And that's true for the law firms, it's true for the universities, and it's true for you and me. So, when we celebrate our victories, it's important to celebrate when we win one against them, even though we know that in the long run, we may lose. Like, we can stop them from cutting off funding and rescinding grants and refusing to pay the grants, but we can't compel them to give new grants out next year and the year after. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The damage in terms of our ability as a nation to have, who fell on the floor? Sean, sorry, Sean. Our ability to attract the best minds from all over the world in any institution has already been severely impaired. And the brain drain is palpable. So, we celebrate our victories against policies that are so outlandish and so contrary to the rule of law in American democracy, it's really hard to call them victories, but they are. Like the preposterous claim that our founding documents don't promise citizenship to those born here. And the attempt to overturn the constitutional right of birthright citizenship by executive order. It's a constitutional right, amended by executive fucking order. What is this, right? This is a victory. The attempt, we won a victory against the attempt to ban medical care for trans people. It's a victory, but, what the fuck? I'm sorry. If you can't take it, tell me, and I'll find another word for fuck. Okay. The imposition of a federal demand of proof of citizenship for registered voters to vote. Did you even know about that one? Did that come across your? Well, we won that one, so it's okay. You didn't have to do anything about it. We won that in court. So we have to win these victories, and we have to keep up the fight to resist this monumental abuse of power. You know, we at the ACLU, and the NYCLU is the ACLU of New York, and there's an ACLU affiliate in every one of the 50 states, 3 in California, if they need it. You know, and we're in the legislatures, we're in Congress, the state legislatures, Congress, the courts, the media, and on the streets. Speaking of the streets, I hear there's a demonstration tomorrow. No King's Day, right? Saturday. I keep thinking that it's like, it's been a long week. I have already put in like 7 days this week, so it's only Wednesday. Anyway, so June 14th, I'm glad you guys are marching. You know, for those who don't want to march, we're assembling at Pershing Square, which is 42nd, right across from Grand Central, and we're going to march into the march. But we'll see you there. We have good signs. I'm sure you do too. But we don't do anything about who's running for mayor because we're nonpartisan. Anyway, so, you know, here in New York, you know, everybody wants to know, what can we do? And it's very hard to figure out ways to help people channel their energy. It really is. But when there are demonstrations and you have the ability to get out there and walk, do it. There's, you know, I'm glad, and I know I said this last time, that here in New York we passed the ERA in November, same time we elected fucking Trump. And you know, the ERA should inoculate us from some of the attacks, and it should inoculate us from the possibility of, you know, a governor who doesn't believe in abortion, a governor who doesn't believe in equality, a governor who doesn't believe in LGBTQ rights, a governor who believes in discrimination, blah, blah, blah. It should, okay? I just want you to know we fought the fight to pass Prop 1. We won by a landslide. We believe that this constitutional amendment will and should inoculate us. But don't think for a minute that we won't have a fight on our hands about that. There are already challenges to the ERA and to what it means in the courts, and the NYCLU is in there fighting like hell to make sure that the ERA is interpreted by our courts as what it should be doing, which is being a state constitutional protection for equality that cannot be overturned by legislation, and that doesn't need legislation to have any effect. So stay tuned. We live in what some people call a blue state. I think I would call this a blue election district. As for the rest of the state, yeah. As the state legislative session comes to a close, I think it's really important, and it's coming to a close any minute now. You know, the Senate's supposed to go out this weekend, the Assembly a few days later. But I feel like it's incumbent on me to tell you, to share with you some of the things that the state legislature has refused to do. You know, we ran an ad in the Albany Times-Union early in, I guess, February maybe, you know, asking, you know, criticizing the state leadership for being silent, for not showing up and not fighting like hell to shore up the rights of New Yorkers. And it's been a disappointing session. There's a bill called New York for All. New York would, for all, okay.
We did some work to
Okay.
move that along.
Okay, good. So New York for All has a lot of support in both chambers of the legislature. My understanding is that there is a three-way agreement between Carl Hastie, Andrea Stewart Cousins, and the governor not to move it because they are afraid of the backlash. You know, I really don't want to see, you know, whoever it is, you know, Lawler or, you know, what's her name? Thank you. I block these things, you know. I don't want to see them running, you know, our state. But I also don't want to see a government that pretends to represent the will of the people, that pretends to have values, just running as fast as it can away from those values. You know, immigration during the campaign was a plus. You know, anti-immigrant stuff was a plus for the Trumpies, right? If these folks, you know, our progressive leadership, supposedly, can't figure out a way to talk about not being forced to spend our state tax dollars to support this anti-immigrant juggernaut, to support the beating up of people for demonstrating in support of immigrants, to support an end to the roundups, the family separation, the bait and switch, then what are they worth? Why is it so valuable to have them as our political leaders? These guys, you know, I know there are swing districts. I know politicians, maybe top priority is to stay in office. They need to have some courage. And when they have some courage, they will generate, yes, a lot of criticism, but they will also generate a good deal of enthusiasm because people will think that we have people of principle running our state for good reasons. So, you know, there's only 3 days left to the session, maybe 4, maybe 5. Call Andrea Stewart Cousins and say you're shocked to hear that she's not moving New York for all. Tell Carl Hastie you're shocked to hear, or is he? He's gotta pass New York for all. Why not? And call the governor. Let them hear from you. There's a bunch of other things, you know, that might surprise you. There was a bill called the Freedom to Read Act that had a lot of traction, a lot of support. It's going nowhere. What's the Freedom to Read Act? It's a bill that would let librarians curate their collections, that would insulate us from this wave of fascistic, you know, book burning that is sweeping too many towns, particularly upstate, but also here in the city. There's the Electronic Communications Privacy Act that is so basic. It's shocking that we even need it, but it would require a warrant to get into the contents of an electronic device. I mean, that's not controversial, you know? It shouldn't be, but it's not something that our very blue, almost veto-proof legislature thinks is important to do, particularly under a fascist regime that is engaged in roundups and surveillance, and who knows, now it's immigrants, but who knows who's next. There are a number of things that are sitting on the governor's desk that she hasn't signed. She vetoed the hospital transparency bill last time. It's passed again. Will she veto it again? This is a bill that would require hospitals to be transparent about the services they do and do not provide. Abortion, sterilization, gender-affirming care, not typically provided in a hospital. So that's one that she's going to have to sign or veto again. made medical aid in dying. Finally, the legislature passed this bill, right? Is the governor going to sign it, or is she going to worry that the Republicans are going to run ads against her saying, oh, she's killing people? If she hears from enough people, maybe she'll get some courage. And then there's the medical privacy bill that's sitting on her desk, which she's been sitting on for months, which would, I think I told you about this last time, it would protect our, not our medical data, but our medical adjacent data. You know, things like, you know, steps and Fitbits and fitness, you know, fitness stuff, you know, medical related activities we engage in and use our, you know, I don't have an Apple Watch, but whatever you use, you know, to track. All that stuff is gathered, and this would protect the confidentiality of the information. That data can tell, you know, the government, good for better or for worse, you know, about our medical activities. You know, the medical adjacent data can tell them about gender affirming care or abortion stuff, and so we need to protect it. We need to protect it anyway, but there are some serious reasons why. So I'm not thrilled about the leadership from our state legislature or from our governor, and I think that it's hard when you live in a solid district to think outside the district. That's why I'm saying you gotta, right? And there's one more thing that I would urge you to think about, which is East Ramapo. Did I tell you about East Ramapo last time? I bet I didn't. Okay, East Ramapo is a school district in Rockland County where there's a white majority that sends their kids all to the yeshivas, and a mostly Latino and black minority that uses the public schools. The school board is controlled by the white majority, which has systematically, for the past 10 or 15 years, siphoned public school money into the yeshivas and destroyed what was once a premier district. We have been fighting alongside the parents in East Ramapo for several years now. There is legislation in Albany that they refuse to touch. If ever there was racism, if ever there was Jim Crow here in New York, it's East Ramapo. And Carl Hastie refuses to do anything. And Andrea Stewart Cousin has refused to move a bill. The state education commissioner deserves a medal, okay? Betty Rosa has been to the district many times, and she gets it. And she is our hero, but she is up against the wall with these guys. So come next year, I'm going to push you guys to actually get active and get your folks to really push hard on this. I think I need to wrap up, don't I? Whatever you want. Okay, okay, I'm almost done. So my closing messages, you know, in addition to the message that you know, we all have to stand up and speak out and not be afraid to speak out for what we believe, there's a couple of other pieces. Like, there are a lot of people who are in the crosshairs of this administration. And when people are in the crosshairs, we have to stand up for them. You know, we can't expect them to be on the front lines. We have to do it. So that means really standing up and speaking out and going to those demonstrations and signing this and that and doing the lobbying. You know, in some places it means, you know, getting to work as escorts and supporting people who you know are vulnerable, afraid to send their kids to school. I think there was a meeting in District 3 this morning on some of that stuff. But we have to think about ways that we can support our neighbors who are in deep, deep trouble. And, you know, this is an administration that will stop at nothing. But we have to be not afraid to know that, yes, we have rights, but we have to not be afraid to tell other people that they have rights, and that we will do everything we can to protect those rights. As we move forward, we have to move forward together. We have to leave self-righteousness and factionalism at the door. Factionalism can be very, very fun. You know, it feels really good to slam people who just don't get it, whether they just don't get it because like they're on the far right, or they don't get it because they're like not in the right place on the left for you. We have to, this is a time that we need to build a united front. We have to build a united front based on common ground. You know, I was shocked. 80% of the alum at Harvard were wearing Crimson Courage stickers. 80% of those stodgy old farts, you know? I mean, we have to build common ground. We have to find what it is that unites us. And it's not hard. It's democracy. So I know it's easier said than done. And I know this is going to be a long, hard road. But I think that if we hang in there, if we stand together, we can bend that arc of history towards justice. This is not the time to duck and cover. So you brought me back. You heard what you heard. So thank you for having me. Okay. Sure, yeah. I may not have answers, but I have time.
So we're gonna do some questions now. A couple people have microphones. I urge you, when you ask a question, please just ask a question. Who's up first? Lynn, let's do your side of the room. Over here, right here. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Oh, sorry, Chuck's side of the room.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do. And I think it's extraordinary. And from my mind, you can say any word that you want, anytime, all the time. I wish more people in our party would do the same. You talked about the fact that this country is a country built on the rule of law and that no one is above the law. And yet what I have seen over the last few years, I don't know what to think about it. I mean, it seems to me that many of these men are getting away with
Murder.
So much.
January 6th, murder.
I'm not even thinking about January 6th people. I'm thinking about Giuliani, Eric Adams, Donald Trump, so many of the people in his administration. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, it's very tempting to say, well, you know, he owns the Supreme Court. You know, we're not going to get it. The court is useless to us. Why bother? You know, and is he going to obey a court order? You know, who knows? But I think that we have an obligation, as long as we can, to use every tool that we have. And so, and I mean it, you know, we have to be in the streets, but we have to be in the courts. And we have to be pressing our legislators to do what they should be doing, you know, to meet the challenge. And be brave. You know, we have to give them the message that we don't want them there if they're not going to do the job we need them to do. So, you know, I have real concerns about New York. I have concerns about our city, you know, after the November elections. I have concerns about our state after the next November elections. You know, what I do know is, I don't know what's going to happen, but if there's a Trumper in Albany, in whatever the governor's mansion, we are cooked. We are cooked. So, we're not in fascism yet. And I could give you a whole rationale for thinking we might not go there. He might not be able to put us there. With McCarthy, it took, that happened over a period of many years. This has been very sudden. And it's so sudden and so sweeping, it's hard to play whack-a-mole. On the other hand, he has not been able to destroy the underpinnings of democracy, to destroy all of the other underpinnings, and to kind of deprogram us from democratic values so thoroughly as it was done, and to inculcate this notion of, the commies under the bed. I mean, they can't do that overnight. So I have hope. Whatever, what else am I going to do? Okay.
Merle?
Other than the Three Parks newsletter, is there any one thing that we should be reading to get advice as to where we should focus our energies? And, some of what you said is a little complicated in terms of who to support. Where would you look for simple suggestions? Am I clear?
Yeah, I don't have any one answer to that. Look, the ACLU is doing a lot of really good and important work, and the NYCLU, as part of that, is doing a lot of really good and important work. We're in the streets, we do protest monitoring, we do lobbying, we have fundraisers, we need money. There's a lot, and we send out emails all the time. If you're not on our list, go on the website. We actually have, I think, only 100,000 members, but we have like 300, 400, 500, I don't know how many 100,000 people in our, activism list. And the easy thing to do is when you get our emails, open it, read it, click on a link if you have time, and learn about the issue. And we give you a simple way to take action by sending an email. But if you want to get more involved, you can sign up to volunteer with us. And we can't create a program to do what you want to do. But we can slot you into what we think are important ways of being active. So, and we're not the only game in town. The New York Immigration Coalition, Planned Parenthood, and there's lots of education stuff going on. Most of it is rooted in particular schools, but I think that's so important. So, yeah. But whatever else you do, give money to a lot of different groups, because groups that have lost their government funding. The head of the New York Immigration Coalition said to me yesterday, I need to raise $1 million by tomorrow because the government funding that I was supposed to get, not from the feds, but from the state and the city, isn't coming through. It's been promised, it's been granted, and I don't have it, and how do I pay my staff? So every nonprofit is in need right now. Pick the ones you want. Immigration defense, it makes such a difference for an immigrant to have a lawyer when they don't get whisked away before they get to court. Anyway, okay.
So we're going to do this side of the room. Rich, back. Oh, I'm sorry, this lady in the front right here. You can focus on New York for All because that's the one that the club was working on. So that would be a good one. You can call Andrea Stewart Cousins, Carl Hastie, and the governor and say you want New York for All to be brought to the floor and voted on before Friday. That's what you want.
If you go on our website, if you go on the NYCLU website, there's a whole legislative agenda, okay? And if you send me an email, maybe I'll be able to respond. I have a lot of emails. I shouldn't have said that. Okay. Steve.
Response, if any, my voice is pretty loud. What? I don't want to. Yeah. What response, if any, is the ACLU, the national chapter, taking to the invasion of California by the Marines, U.S. Armed Forces, on domestic soil against our own citizenry? And then, a quick thing, second prong of that question, more for you to opine on it. Why do you think, and it's a subjective question, the national Democratic leadership has not made a bigger issue of this?
I lost the last phrase. The national Democratic leadership is what?
The Democrats have to make an issue. I'll just go with the first one.
Well, you know, I think the question I can answer is there a lawsuit challenging the invasion of California? And the answer is yes. The Governor Newsom has filed a lawsuit. The ACLU in every state, in every blue state, bluish, funny you don't look bluish, anyway, is working closely with the attorney generals on litigation in the event that we get invaded as well. We're also trying to shore up the governor's office in the event that we get invaded. So the ACLU will probably have an amicus role, but this is a lawsuit that is best brought by the governor, and that's happening. Yeah, we're out there in the press talking about the illegality of it all, the abuse of power, and but right now the litigation is being carried by the state of California. Yeah.
We're going to call on the lady behind Rich in just a second. I do want to point out, excuse me, one moment. Teresa has sign-up sheets for the Three Parks Picnic, which is the most fun event by the pool at 103rd Street in Central Park West. You just go down the hill, and we're passing it around because it's a potluck, and you should bring a dish for 4 to 6 people. So please sign up because Teresa's circulating that, and we'll tell you more in a little bit. But now let's go ahead, please. And a question, please.
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. A lot of stuff is happening around not just political, but also with housing and everything. We've been told, because there's something going over our housing with co-ops and everything with HDFCs, that it's better to go to our Senate office and speak to them face to face rather just calling. So should we call, email, and see them face to face as a group?
So when you can get to somebody's office, do it. It's much better face to face. But when you can't, and you probably can't get to Hochul's office, more though she's got an office on 3rd Avenue, you know, or Andrew Stewart Cousins, although she's got an office in Yonkers, and Carl has an office in, they all have, you know, offices nearby. But if you can't do that, you should, you know, email or call. Yeah, yeah.
As long as you do something. This lady in the gray shirt, please.
Thank you. I'm wondering what the role of law enforcement, city and state law enforcement have in protecting New Yorkers from abductions, et cetera, and who would have control over them in order to, like for instance, if we saw something, would we call 911? If we thought something bad was going on?
No. I mean, you know, well, if you think somebody's being kidnapped, you call 911. But I think the most important thing is that the government, the police department, not aid and abet ICE in its dirty work. Actually, the police department doesn't have the authority to use its resources to help ICE out. That's under New York's sanctuary laws, and it's also under a lawsuit that we brought back in 2018. It's illegal to commandeer state resources in service of the federal government without specific authority. We have to, here in New York City, whoever becomes mayor, fight to retain and strengthen our own sanctuary laws. There are enough exceptions to that, our sanctuary laws, to drive a Mack truck through. And this mayor has been trying to do that, ICE on Rikers, and I worry that we might not have a mayor who is as fully committed as we need them to be to our sanctuary laws. So we have to make that fight.
Hold on, we need to make sure the mic is working.
The acts in the legislature that are going nowhere. You know, the President of the United States is the most powerful person on this planet at the moment, and usually is. And I'm reminded, I mean, the things he's doing, I'm reminded of how Bush got us into a war in Iraq and destabilized the whole Middle East. This has been going on forever. So, do you think nothing is happening because everybody's afraid, including the governor? It seems like, you know, there's a trend to acquiesce to the power of the president, and everyone is afraid to do anything.
Well, yeah, I would push back against your narrative, actually. I think people are pushing back and fighting back. And I think that, I mean, I'm not a supporter of you know, aggressive tactics, but I think the outpouring of support in LA for immigrants' rights is people standing up and fighting back. I think that every one of the hands-off rallies gets bigger and bigger. Last time we had 250 RSVPs to our email about it. You know, we already have 600 for tomorrow, no, for Saturday. I think people are in fact standing up. There are demonstrations every night at Foley Square. So people are speaking out. You know, it's not like it's a different way of organizing. And New York is always sui generis. You know, there are so many different organizations and groups, but there's a lot happening. And, you know, all I can say is God bless Bernie Sanders. You know, the Bernie Sanders AOC tour was really quite something else. You know, it was the political equivalent of the, what is it, the Eras tour, you know, Taylor Swift. But he really does, they really do tell it like it is. And so I think there is good news, that people are mobilized, they're energized, they're feeling they can't escape the horrors that have befallen our country. And I don't think that fear is an issue. You know, I can't tell you how many people I met this weekend who didn't want to sign the amicus brief because they were afraid. They worked for the government. They were afraid of retribution. But like a lot more people are coming out of the woodwork and are not intimidated, and we have to keep that going.
And we can be some of the people coming out of the woodwork.
Absolutely.
If you want to call Andrea Stewart Cousins, just Google her. Her contact comes up. Call her. Call her tonight. Leave a message. Same for Carl Hastie. Same for Governor Hochul. There are phone numbers that are at your fingertips, and you can just call them. Do we have any other questions for Donna tonight? Yes, right there. And hold on, Bob. We'll be with you right in a second.
Why do you think you won the popular vote in November?
By what percent?
What? I don't care how much. And in the voting, the number of people who voted in New was down, I heard 600,000.
We can't hear you unless you speak into the
The number of people who didn't vote in November was like 600,000. Why did he win the popular vote?
Well, I think you answered your own question by the data that you just put out there, which is that I think there's a combination. Look, I'm not the political expert. I'm really not. But, you know, the fact that local media and social media is controlled significantly by the right-wing lunatics who are creating their own narrative about reality and who don't care about facts, right? And who deliberately misrepresent what's going on is a very big obstacle. The fact that the Democrats can't figure out how to raise money from wealthy people while at the same time talking about a people's agenda is another reason. You know, when there are 600,000 fewer votes, that tells us that the enthusiasm level is down. So there's lots of reasons, you know, and I think we have to not buy into all the naysaying, and we just have to say, well, we didn't get it done last time. We have no choice. We've got to get it done in the by-elections. We have to get it done in the next presidential because the country can't survive another 2 years of a trifecta in Washington, that's for sure.
So we're going to take one more question up here from Bob, I think, and I just want to say that, you know, you're here at 3 parks. We will be working on taking back congressional seats. As soon as January 26 hits, we do not get involved in primaries, okay? But once the Democratic nominee is assured in a district, then we are there. Wendy, raise your hand and wave it a lot. Wendy took us out to Long Island, and we won a seat out there. We won Laura Gillen's seat. So you can stand up, you can be counted. And as Donna has said the whole night tonight, there is hope. We all have to work together. Let's have Bob. And Bob, we're going to keep it to a quick question because Donna's been talking for an hour now. Well, no, you're allowed to go home and have dinner.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. First of all, I apologize. I haven't been to a meeting in quite some time.
Just give us your question, Bob.
My question is this. I think the reason, or maybe I should say, why is it out on the street, the Democratic Party is perceived, I don't mean to be sexist, but they are perceived as a bunch of weak sisters, okay? That was one of Trump's main get-overs in terms of dealing with the Latino community and even some idiots in the black community. And we have to stop, we have to get rid of the Cuomos, this governor that you have up here, you have to get rid of people like that, and you have to get Democrats who run for office who are more in the style of that brother who's the governor out there in California. And if you're not going to do that, you're wasting your time.
Similar to everybody that we've endorsed, and I know we'll see you out there.
I think that the point about, you know, the irony of, you know, the racists, the oligarchs, the neo-Nazis, you know, not all of them, you know, sort of like broadening their appeal to black people, Latinos. What? You know, it's an irony. And, but you know, if the Democratic Party really is the party, the big tent party, we believe in equality for all people. I can't say we about the Democratic Party because I'm nonpartisan. So you. I think that folks have to figure out how to press for equality and recognizing the dignity and decency and humanity of everyone as who they are without writing off people who are not vulnerable. okay? Or we have to learn how to talk about black people without alienating Latinos. We have to talk about women without alienating men. We have to talk about LGBTQ people without alienating a whole bunch of other people. We really have, you know, it's not as easy as you would think. When we're just fighting for equal rights, to reverse racist laws, in some ways it was easier to get people on the side of justice and doing right. When you're talking about anything more than that, it's really, really hard. We have to figure out how to make that big tent, you know, real for people, you know, and we have to point out how the policies of this regime are hurting, you know, Main Street America, because they are. You know, they're hurting everybody except, you know, I was going to say Elon Musk. They're even hurting him, fortunately. I think how we, you know, work and play well together in our very big sandbox is a big challenge for us. You know, the woke criticism is something that, you know, some people poo-poo. I actually think it resonated for a reason, you know, and we have to figure out how to support, you know, racial equality in a way that doesn't pitch life as a zero-sum game. You know, there's enough around for everybody to get a piece of the pie and their fair share. Well, that's another way to say it. Okay.
Let's give it up for Donna, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. All right.
So we'll have Donna back, even if she doesn't want to come back. So let's give it up again for Donna, shall we? So thanks again for those of you who weren't here at the beginning. A couple of different things. One, we have a lot of tabling and flyering at subways coming up. We need your help. Along the lines in response to some of the people who asked questions tonight, that's where we need you. That's where you can make a difference, so watch your emails. Teresa is now going to come up both as our district leader and our fearless picnic leader.
Hi, everyone. I just want to remind you, or let you know in case you don't know, about our picnic that's going to be July 23rd in Central Park. It's at the entrance of 103rd. It's at the pools, okay? You'll be getting, all members will be getting a postcard with a little map, okay? So a reminder. We're also sending around sign-ups so that you can sign up and let us know what you're bringing. We'll also be sending out blasts. So our first picnic was in 2004, so this is like 21 years later. We took a 2-year hiatus, so it is a lot of fun, and it's also a potluck, okay? So we'll supply some things, but everybody brings a dish to the picnic, okay? So you'll be hearing more about it.
You'll be hearing more about it and reading more about it. Thank you very much, Teresa. It's at 5 o'clock, Wednesday, July 23rd, from 5 to 7:30, but you want to come early to get the best food. Food and drink, so please be there. I don't think I've forgotten anything except for one thing. Some of you who came on the last No Kings March with us, Lynn and Steve make these fabulous little signs you can put around your neck. They are waterproof. You may need them on Saturday. If you went off with them and you brought them home, please bring them with you on Saturday. They say things like hands off Medicaid. There are no epithets, but they are clearly all anti-Trump. So we look forward to seeing you there, and is there any further business that I'm forgetting? Otherwise, we are adjourned, and thank you very much for coming.